If you're pouring everything into growing your caseload but still not building real wealth, Lee Rudin has a reframe that will change the way you look at every case that walks through your door.
Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, the show where law firm owners learn to build wealth, scale their firms, and design the life of freedom they deserve. Hosted by Darren Wurz, business and wealth advisor for law firm owners and author of The Lawyer Millionaire, this podcast delivers the strategies and inspiration you need to break free from the grind and become the financial success you envision. Let's dive in.
All right, and we're here with Lee Rudin of Rudin Law. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Thanks for having me, Darren. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. I came across you on LinkedIn. I said, we've got to have this dude on the program. I think you're doing things just so uniquely and innovatively, and really, really standing out. One of the first questions I want to ask you is, where does this creative streak come from? Is this just part of who you are, or what inspired you to kind of be different?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come from a family of artists or musicians or actors, but I've always liked kind of all that stuff, big music fan, movies, TV. I guess I don't know, like being silly, and I live in New Orleans, so costumes are, part of everyday life. And I figured you're going to start a law firm, start a business in a crowded space. You better be different to stand out if you want to be known. And, in our business, like many businesses, you got to get attention before you can get clients. So I figured, let me lean all the way into that as long as it felt comfortable, and it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate a little bit, I think. It's law and wealth management are both very, staid professions, right? So, when I came out with my book and I wanted to call it The Lawyer Millionaire, that's a bit of a statement. And, you're definitely making a statement. You've had some incredible growth. Tell us a little bit before we dive in too deeply, just about who you are, what your firm is, what you're doing, just so our audience can get to know you a little bit.
Sure. Law firm. It's called Rudin Law, named after me. It started out of a bedroom in my house. I had been a defense lawyer for over a decade, and through that work had organically grown plaintiff personal injury practice, right? Car wrecks, slip and falls, kind of ran the gamut, but along the lines of work I was already doing on the defense side. And I kind of saw what the other side was doing. And again, it's not rocket science, a lot of what we do. But the key to all of it is building the relationships. On the defense side, you're doing it maybe at a more corporate level. On the plaintiff side, you're doing it, with the individual. So, B2B on the defense side, B2C on the plaintiff side. And I just started talking to people that I knew and saw opportunities to help them where they needed help. And that began to organically snowball to the point where my old firm said, hey, you can't keep building this plaintiff injury practice in our defense firm, not because there's an actual conflict, but because there's likely to be one down the road. And there's definitely a spiritual one right now.
Yeah.
So June 1 of 23, I launched the firm. I was a hybrid to start, some defense work, some plaintiff work. And then when I wound down the last of my insurance defense work at the end of 23, I rebranded, leaned into this Get Rude moniker, and we're off to the races since.
Very cool. Very cool. Were you kind of already doing really well? You grew incredibly, very quickly. You launched in 2023. Is that right?
That's right.
And you hit seven figures very rapidly. Was that from the benefit of having that head start, or what did you do that made that happen?
A little bit of both. I mean, I came into the firm with a couple cases. Like I'd say probably between like 2 and 3 dozen cases. Some of them were injury, not all of them. And so, I knew that over time those would settle out, and some of them I thought would be better than others, and they would kind of give me a bit of a head start. But I think, when I talk to young lawyers or people that are just trying to get out of their existing firms, I tell them, you got to be able to swallow hard for a couple months at least where money's not coming in and it should be going out, right? If you're not out there trying to acquire cases, meaning you're doing lead generation type purchasing, or you're advertising on social media or through Google pay-per-click, whatever it is to get those cases in the door immediately, if you're not willing to spend that, you're probably not ready to come out either.
Mm-hmm.
Because, this is like one of those, scared money don't make money. You gotta spend. It's a very competitive market, and it's hard to predict referrals, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
Over time, you could kind of map it and see, well, how many do we get on average just because of who we are and how long we've been in the community. But in the beginning, you have no idea, and praying for a referral ain't a business strategy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although it is interesting, I'm curious with your structure. You've got incredible branding, which is really awesome. I'm sure you're doing a lot with digital. But you mentioned those relationships. Are you still finding that you get a good chunk of business through referrals? Because even some of the big firms that I talk with, they say like, hey, half of my cases still come from referrals.
The answer is absolutely yes. I would say it's probably, when we have a great month, I look at the mix being 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, meaning
okay.
a third to our meta advertising, and then a third to, let's call it the other digital, SEO, PPC, maybe some YouTube ads, stuff that can be directly attributed, but a lot of times it's kind of this amorphous attribution. And then the other third being referrals. Ideally, it's past clients, it's friends from the neighborhood, maybe it's people that know me directly, right? That's a good mix. Mm-hmm. I mean, past clients to me is the best referral, because that's people that you've done well for, that think highly of you to put you back in play for someone they care about or someone they know. One of the things that we're really striving towards this year is being intentional about fostering those relationships, because the last thing you want to hear is you had a happy client, they had a friend that got in a wreck, and they just forgot to call you. How they don't forget to call you if you're out there being annoying as long as you can, as often as you can, sending them a postcard, writing them a newsletter, maybe sending them whatever gift for a random event or a holiday, just being in front of them, because we're the business that you advertise to people that don't need you. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You're advertising to the masses.
Yeah. Spray and pray.
But spray enough that you make an impression so that they come back to you.
Definitely. Yeah. You've got to be memorable, and you've got that down, which is excellent. There's a story, maybe you've heard this story. Henry Ford bought a huge insurance policy, and he had a friend who I think it's Henry Ford. I might be getting the story totally wrong. He had a friend he golfed with all the time, was an insurance salesman. He didn't buy it from him. And the insurance salesman was like, was kind of insulted. He said, well, why didn't you buy that policy from me? And he said, well, you never asked.
Look, a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Right. Same concept. You got to be in front of those people, making noise. So, let's talk a little bit about mindset. I mean, you took a plunge, and you went fast. You went all in. I see, I've seen this with other people. Those that go all in fast, you can't hold back, and you've got to make that plunge. When you do, it works, but it can be a little scary, a little daunting. What was the moment where you were like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right, and we're all in?
Well, I can't say that moment has come. There's been the moments where I'm like, whoa, why did we do this again? Like, why are we getting the 6-figure salary from some firm and having this little plate of business on the side? And I joke because I really do love this. Like the operation of the business, the marketing, putting the puzzle pieces together is really engaging to me, and exhilarating. But I think what happens is, and this is what I've told folks, you got to give yourself runway. Let's call it 3-4 months of absolute pain. Because even if you're billing by the hour, right, you're not doing plaintiff contingency work, it's going to take a while. You got to finish the first month of work to bill it, to have it come back in 30 days later, maybe 60 days later. Now you're finally seeing $1 from day one of your firm's birth.
Yeah.
And then with contingency fee cases, like we are in Louisiana, we're a $15,000 minimum. So figure like with proper treatment, you can get a case resolved in 90 days. Again, check comes in, check gets signed, check clears. You're talking about still like that 90 to 120 day window before you're seeing $1 of your new efforts.
Yeah.
That's, I think, where people have to get comfortable. And that's for kind of crappy cases. The good stuff could take years. So you got money out the door on marketing, on staff, on rent, on case costs. And like, you better be able to have that. You better have that appetite. Otherwise, you might be better served being at a firm.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I see a lot of law firm owners that maybe stay stuck in that growth mode for so long. And, it can be really easy to grow, get to 7, 8 figures in revenue, but you're not paying yourself what you could be making somewhere else very easily. So you're right. There is the kind of that runway, but there comes a point at which we got to make sure we're prioritizing profitability.
Well, when we talked offline before this, right, maybe last week or so, you told me, profit first and your recommendations on how to structure some of the accounts. And I did it. I took an account that like basically was dormant.
Nice.
And I put it into the profit account. And we had a nice result the other day. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put money in there. Now, hopefully I don't have to take money out of there, meaning like don't come due. But I said, let me try this because you're not the first person to say to me, hey, Lee, like when you get a good result, not a home run, but like you hit a nice double, take some of it for yourself. So you remember why you're doing it and you don't get disenchanted with the whole process because it's a reality.
Yeah, it can be really easy to kind of fall into the growth trap. I've been there myself, right? Where you're reinvesting, grow, and that's great. But we need to take home money too. We need to build wealth.
Yeah. Somebody said to me the other day, they said your pre-litigation cases, right, in a contingency fee model, those are cash flow. And your litigated cases are the wealth builders.
Okay.
Now, that's not going to be exactly true across the board, but figuring if you're litigating it, unless you're doing it because you want to tell the insurance company to fuck off, if you're litigating it, it's a good case. It's got meat on it, and it's going to return a better number. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense to me, theoretically. So, but again, if you have a fully litigation docket, you better figure out how do you fund your existence as a firm because litigated cases take longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the cycle of resolving those.
Right. That's a good way of looking at it. Absolutely. And cash flow really is the lifeblood of a firm, so I'm glad you're looking into profit first because I think that is great for firms that have such, so much cash flow volatility, can really help you be prepared for that and make it easy, because examining your financial statements on a regular basis is something we should all be doing, but it takes time. And, it can be hard to really dig into that and make it make a lot of, strategic sense. Let's talk a little bit about your team. You've really embraced offshoring and, having team members who are out of the country who can really help you effectively. Tell us about that, how you've made that really work successfully.
Yeah, well, I think, in my case, necessity was the mother of invention, right? I needed to be nimble financially because I was starting out. I needed support, but I didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to bring on a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 local employee, whether it's a paralegal or whomever. So I wanted to be creative about that. And I started exploring an offshore team, brought some folks on who were bilingual, who could help me on the phones, could help me with management of cases, and, found that there's great talent across the globe. You have people that are hardworking, really appreciative of the opportunity, which is different than in some communities, right? Where people come to work and think that you owe them something versus the other way around. And look, I'm just looking to find people that are good people. We're in a tough business, right? But you do well by doing good for others. And so people have to embrace that idea because you're seeing people on sometimes their worst day and they're going to be nasty to to you and they're fussy and they're impatient and they're hurt. And like we're bearing the brunt of that sometimes when the ire really isn't directed at us, but they don't know where to direct it. So we get it. And
Yeah.
so my team needs to feel like they're supported and that they're willing to take that because they understand it is in the service of the client.
Yeah, a lot of lawyers are afraid of doing that. They're afraid of quality issues. I mean, delegation itself is very difficult for many of us. What has been your experience?
So I would say that it's a mixed bag. Across the board, I've never felt that I've hired someone who wasn't appreciative of the opportunity. Obviously, like any hire, you deal with the personality traits and the characteristics of the person. Some people have the innate traits that make them successful. Some don't. You can train everybody, but they might only be as good as the training. I equate offshore team members to AI, to the secretary sitting outside of your office door. They're only as good as the instruction and the follow-up and the review. And if you give AI a bunch of crap, you're going to get a bunch of crap back. If you give an offshore team member or a team member down the hall crap, you're going to probably get crap back. The difference is AI is really cost effective. Offshore team members can be very cost effective, but that secretary who's been doing it for 35 years and, has a almost 6-figure salary and benefits and all that is not cost effective and may be a worse employee than any of the other things we just tossed around.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that I'm not as good as I thought about getting what's in my head translated or put on paper or, and so that was a big learning curve for me. I'm sure you had some surprises because you probably didn't have employees before in your defense practice, or maybe you did, but what kind of surprised you, or what did you learn as you were hiring people?
I hear what you say about getting the training on paper, because of the need to be nimble. I started exploring, how do you do this? And so I learned about the Loom videos and using Scribe concurrently to take down the SOPs and just tried to build out, like, what do I think people need to know to do this job?
Yeah.
One of the things that it sounds silly, but honestly, I thought was brilliant and really needed to be done was I wrote a primer on how to pronounce Louisiana names, Louisiana street names, words, because they are never going to be able to pronounce it right. Anybody out of this area, unless you tell them how to do it. So it seems simple, but it gives them the ammunition to be a better team member because at least they can try to pronounce the name as, the crazy name as best they can. But it's all about education and the follow-up for your team. And the more you invest in their training, as long as they can absorb it, the better team member you're going to have and the more effective they're going to be for you as time goes on.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples of some of those words?
Well, there's a great street here in New Orleans called Chapatulas. All right. It's got probably
I've heard of that.
Native Americans, but it starts with a T. It's TCHOUP. Every name that you would think, we have a bunch of like siren streets, like I guess the Greek sirens, and they're all pronounced wrong. So you think they're said this way, like it's supposed to be Calliope, but we pronounce it Calliope. Or the street name is spelled like Milan, but we pronounce it Milan. Again, silly things that knowing how to pronounce it will give you instant cred with the people you're talking to because you sound like you're from here, even though you're clearly not from here.
Yeah. I know Calliope from watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Calliope, the Calliope Project. Yeah.
And I lived in Kentucky for many years. If you're not from Kentucky, people say Louisville, but it's Louisville. Absolutely. What size of a team do you envision? Is there a target in sight? Are you trying to be the $100 million firm? What does the future look like?
Darren, we're just figuring our way through it. I didn't start this firm because I wanted to, right? It wasn't like I had a goal to start my firm. I was a partner, a partner in name only at two other firms. I didn't care if my name was on the door. I just figured like, let me do my job, do it to the best of my ability, try to help clients of my own. I always liked the sales side of it. There's a certain satisfaction of being able to convince somebody that you're the right fit for them, making them comfortable with you. I loved it on the defense side. I was always a good business generator.
Okay.
I'm good at it now. I think I like people. So being able to engage with them, show them we can help them, actually help them, right? I love that. And, we're a team, we're up to 15 now, myself and 14 others. Like I never thought that that's where we were going to be. It's just that as the needs arise, or if I think like we should grab this person because they're talented and they'll help us be better at client service or better at managing cases or resolving liens or getting medical records. Like, could somebody else on the team do it? Yeah. Would it make their job harder and them be less efficient? Yeah. So let's just spend the money and get somebody else in that seat.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What do you enjoy more? Do you want to focus more on? Is it the actual casework, or do you enjoy the business and leadership side of things more? Where do you see yourself going?
I think everybody can look at me and say, "Oh, this guy likes the marketing and he likes likes being on the podcast and speaking at
Yeah.
conferences and doing the social media videos." Like, I really do like that. Part of that I think though is like the community engagement stuff. And I really like being out, going to events, meeting people, just getting to create relationships. I really enjoy that. The minutia of HR and office management, no, I can delegate that. And in terms of the casework, I'm good at it, but there's plenty of good lawyers, so that's a place you can delegate. You can't necessarily delegate being the front person if you're
Yeah.
good at it. So if my face has to be on the videos, then my face has to be on the videos.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
You're the rainmaker.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
Yeah. What made you good at sales? Is it just your personality? Did you learn this skill along the way? What happened?
I the story I will the name I will give myself is I'm a chameleon, and not in a unpleasant way, but I grew up in central New Jersey to in a kind of middle income area. We had some people that did quite well and people that did not, and I went to public school. I have friends that are every race, color, creed, from all types of nationalities, and so I was exposed to so many things and had to interact with so many different people, and I get along with people. So it doesn't matter if you're the A-star student or maybe you're the guy riding the pine on the sports team. Like, I think there's a way to bond with people, find common ground, and that a lot of times is sales. Like, what's
Yeah.
your pain point? How can I relate to you? How can I make you comfortable that I'm not trying to sell you or take advantage? And all of that being equal, do we like each other? Do we want to work together? Because people want to work with people they like.
Yep. People
So
they know, like, and trust.
that's it. That's it. And, so I think that if you can do that well, don't talk down to people. You're not better than them.
Yeah.
It goes a long way to be a decent human.
Yeah, and I think authenticity goes a long way, and I think that's kind of what, as an outsider, what I see in your marketing is it's very authentic. It seems very authentically you, the message that's coming across,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
You can't take yourself too seriously either. Like, I know what we do. I know what people think of us. So like
Hmm.
a guy was talking shit to me, in the very beginning when I was doing some social media advertising, and he calls me an ambulance chaser. And then he calls me a bottom feeder. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to record a video as the bottom feeder. And I talked about like all the great things in Louisiana are bottom feeders: crawfish, catfish, shrimp. We're below sea level. We're all bottom feeders, right? And if you don't like it, get the fuck out of here. And then I did one where I was literally like sprinting in front of the local children's hospital near my house in a suit in the summer. And it was my ambulance chaser video. And I said, look, at Rudin Law, we don't chase ambulances. We've tried. They're too fast. So instead, we just stand here in front of the emergency room and we wait for them to stop. And,
Yeah.
you know, just poking fun. I know what people think, but I think if
Yeah.
people really understood what we do, the risk we take on behalf of our clients, the financial risk, we work, we don't get paid unless we win. We put up money without knowing if you're going to win, calculated risks. And we do it in the service of people that have gotten hurt and can't get the relief that they should be getting from the people that hurt them or the insurance companies that they've paid. That's pretty fucked up. But that's the world we live in, the world we live in. Anyway, I love what I do, and I don't care what people think. That I guess, that breeds authenticity, right?
Absolutely. And you're doing a lot of great things in marketing. I'm curious, you've tried a lot of things probably. Rather than ask you what things are working well, what things have you found don't work well? Or were there any like big marketing, not mistakes, but things you would have not done, in the rearview mirror?
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing that when I was doing it, I kind of saw that this wasn't the way to do it. And it's just blindly spending money on marketing without a plan and without having a trusted advisor who can tell you like, this makes sense. This is where you should invest. That's part A, right? Like don't do the spray and pray because you probably don't have enough money to put it in enough buckets to make a dent, or excuse me, to put it in a bucket to make a dent. So focus your efforts on maybe one channel, maybe a channel and a second channel. Put some effort in there, and then you got to push some chips in a little bit to get back what you want. But beyond that, like creative, right? If you don't do something to differentiate yourself, and it doesn't have to be the way I do, right? In silly costumes and with this, aggressive attitude, you could be the whole other end of the spectrum, but be uniquely boring, be uniquely plain, or uniquely conservative, whatever it is, but be unique. Because if not, no one's going to stop scrolling past your ad.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, really. You gotta be you. You can't really adopt somebody else's style. It won't resonate.
And you're going to hate it because it's a chore, right? Creating content, it's a lot. So you better like what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to feel really weird, and you're going to hate it and not do it, not invest in it the way you need to.
Yeah. How are you tracking your marketing efforts and seeing what works? How do you evaluate that?
Well, because we're so heavy into digital, we can really, you can do a great job with attribution there. Some of it's not perfect, but if you're not about direct attribution all the time, now there's some things you absolutely can attribute, right? If you're running a lead, you're running a ad on Meta, and there is a form fill that goes with it, you can directly attribute every lead that's coming from those ads. At the same time, if you're doing other digital marketing and someone says, oh, I saw you on Google or I went onto your website. Yeah, maybe it came from your social media ad, but they never filled out your form. That's going to happen. But if the holistic lift is enough to say, all right, on digital, we're doing well over here, you should be able to attribute every referral because you're talking to them. They're telling you who they came from. That you should be able to know that. You should be able to track that. We're doing all
yes.
And we sponsor, if you look over my shoulder, that's Bret the Hitman Hart. This is a knockoff of the Acolyte Protection Agency shirt from the WWE. We sponsor a local wrestling promotion. So I know from the events that I go to, when I get cases from there, well, I know how they found me. They're telling me, hey, I saw you at Wildcat Wrestling, or we met at Wildcat. So I know, what did I get out of that sponsorship besides having a whole bunch of fun and making some friends? Like, what cases came out of it? Is it a profitable endeavor, dollar for dollar?
If we could just save this segment, because so many law firms are not tracking this data. They don't know where the clients came from. And as a result, they're not being profitable in their marketing activities. Like, one of the biggest bills, expenses that law firms have is marketing. So if you're going to be profitable, one of the first areas to look is the marketing. What are the things that are working well? Let's double down on those. What are the things that are not working so well? Let's really investigate. And what are the things that are just totally a disaster? Let's let's get rid of them. Let's not do them anymore.
So when I was interested in launching a more heavy presence on digital, meaning I was going to ratchet up my spend. I was going to bring it, I'm going to call it in-house, but like it was all going to be run on my platforms, my meta accounts. I said, I also need to address intake for the reason you're describing.
Yeah.
Attribution. You want to make sure all the leads that you're spending good money on are getting followed.
Yes.
So we hired this company out of South Carolina called Legal Intake Pros, and they have been rock stars. And one of the things that they've done for us that I found particularly astute was they focused on attribution. They wanted to go back and reverse attribute where maybe we didn't have attribution on older cases in the system. And I thought that was really intuitive because now they're saying, hey, yeah, we want our intake team to be performing at a high level, but we also want to see where are we getting the best fodder for the team. And you can't do that if you're not tracking where the lead's coming from and what's converting.
Absolutely. And you're going to be swayed to try all these new things you see other people doing, but it may not work well for you. You got to focus on what's really dialing in for you.
That's the shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
Look, I'm as guilty as the next guy. I try to be as patient as I can, but when someone's like, hey, man, I got the magic AI bullet. Do you want to explore it? I'm like, yeah, I do, but I'm not going to say no to you. I want to hear what you got to say and see if there's any there.
Yeah. Now, in your intake process, are you doing the sales call with the clients? Are you still involved in that? Do you have that fully delegated? What is that looking like for you?
80, 90% delegated. I mean, if somebody calls me, friend of a friend, hey, Lee, or a lawyer sends me somebody, I'm going to probably conduct the preliminary intake, get enough meat to, again, kick it to my real intake specialists so that they can do the full deep dive. But I also, if someone's trusting me with their referral and they want to hear my voice, I'm going to at least try to introduce myself, tell them, hey, like, I can't talk to you right now for whatever reason, but I'm going to make sure you get taken care of and, talk to Julian, talk to Tatiana, and we'll get you situated. But I'm really glad you're here and we're going to help you. And I still do some of it on the weekends. Like I'll see a lead come in, and if I don't have somebody I know working, like maybe I'll chase it, just send them a text, see if they'll answer. If they respond, like get on the phone.
Sure.
Just for sport. Like I love it.
Yeah.
So.
That is what A players do. They do random things like that. I've noticed. How have you translated your skills as a salesperson to the sales team and helping them be better closers? Or, how have you addressed that?
So we met on LinkedIn, and I posted about this recently on LinkedIn, which got some interesting responses. But I want to empower them, and I want them to know what they can do and the very few things they can't do, right? You're not going to hang up on a client. You're not going to yell at a prospective client. Like, you're not going to do that. I can do that. You cannot, because I will tarnish my own reputation by dressing like a clown or dressing like a sheep or whatever else, but you're not allowed to tarnish my reputation. So like that's what you can't do. Other than that, I want you to be authentically you. I want you to actually give a shit about the person on the other side of the phone, or you better be able to fake it, right? That's it. Those are your two choices. But also, like, you heard me. How many times have I cursed on this podcast in the 30 minutes we've been on? I think that if someone tells you, hey, I just got rear-ended and I'm on the way to the hospital and I can't feel my lower legs, shouldn't your response be, holy shit, that's terrible? Or, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. Like, if you're real and you speak like that, then speak like that. It's a bit disarming because they don't expect to hear that from a law firm or a lawyer. But I also think it breeds trust immediately because they realize this isn't just some script. It's somebody being authentic, being genuine and caring that I'm like pretty messed up and we should care.
Yeah. And teaching them to have that empathy. That is huge. I find I've heard this a lot from other law firms that the intake team doesn't empathize with the callers coming in. If you can get them to express that, that's huge.
You know who's a great person to be on your intake team? someone that's actually
So,
been in a wreck, someone that's
oh
actually gotten
yeah,
hurt, that's
yeah,
actually had to go through the bullshit of chiropractors and MRIs and specialists and dealing with property damage and finding the rental car and all that stuff. It's a pain. And it
yeah.
sucks because then you're probably hurting all the while, and you got other burdens that don't stop. Your rent, your mortgage, your kids' soccer practice. Like, it doesn't stop.
Hmm.
You're just
That's
doing it
such a
every
good
day.
point.
It stinks.
Yeah, maybe that's something you should look for in
Look,
an intake person.
I hurt my back exercising, I don't know, 7 years ago, and
Hmm.
went through like the chiro, the injections, the physical therapy, and I'm back to,
Yeah,
as best I'm going to be with a guy who has previously hurt his back. But that gave me new bonding moments with my clients because I've done it all. I've gotten
yeah.
the back injections. I know what I believe them to be, which oftentimes I felt was a nothing burger. I was like, wait, I'm awake while you're giving me an injection in my back and we're just talking? Okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And like, I'm okay with that. I'm better. So
Yeah, very cool. Well, Lee, unfortunately, we're coming to the close to the end of our time here. I want to ask you two last questions. We talked about profit first. I'm excited for you to dig into that one. But other than that, I'm curious if there's any other book that you are really excited about right now, or something that was instrumental to you in kind of getting the firm launched.
yeah, I'm going to tell you, it's right over that shoulder. It's that yellow book right there. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Mm,
It's by Will Guevara. I've talked about it before. He was the front of house manager for 11 Madison Park in New York City. And the book's all about how they took the high standards that they had in the kitchen for the food. And they said, why don't we employ this on the front side of the house? And it talks about how they do this unique gifting to create moments for their guests, how they put someone who is passionate about beer in charge of the beer program, someone passionate about coffee in charge of the coffee program. So they had the best coffee and the best beer and the best moments for the people that walk in the door. And I have my team empowered to do that. I'm like, hey guys, if you hear that someone's had a baby, getting married, like, we want to know so we can send them the thing, because that means we're listening, we're paying
yeah.
attention. We can give them something that tells them that we're different than just somebody that counts them as a number. And so that's an awesome book for any practice area because it's got nothing to do with the law. It's just about client service and a different way to look at it. And it's the first book I can remember reading cover to cover as a like working adult because I've just been so consumed, but I loved it.
Yeah, we've had some other folks who've recommended that, so we'll link that again in the show notes for all the listeners. Well, Lee, anything else you'd like to leave our audience with today?
Sure. Listen, people were very kind with me coming out as a new practice owner. If anybody needs anything, if they have questions about offshore staffing, about digital marketing, about running a firm, anything, feel free to reach out to me. Every time I do one of these podcasts, I get an email or a message or an Instagram message or LinkedIn, whatever. And I'm happy to help whomever, however. So if you're looking for me, my Instagram, YouTube, TikTok handle is at GetRudLaw. My website is getrud.com. You can email me at lee@getrud.com. Give us a follow on social. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm just happy to help whoever needs it. And if you get into a car wreck, you got to stop being polite and get rude.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for being on today.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate you, man.
All right. A huge thank you to Lee Rudin for bringing the energy today and the real talk. You can find Lee at getrud.com or reach him on social media. Check the show notes for all the links. The cash flow versus wealth builder distinction is something I wish every law firm owner understood before they hit seven figures in revenue and wonder why they still feel broke. I've seen it firsthand. Firms growing fast, cases stacking up, the owner still not paying themselves what they deserve. Growth without a wealth strategy is really just a busy treadmill. Here at the Lawyer Millionaire, this is exactly what we help law firm owners untangle. Because running a profitable firm and actually building personal wealth are two different games. and many are only playing one of them. We work with law firm owners to connect the dots between what's happening in your business and what's actually accumulating in your personal wealth picture. That's the integration that changes everything. And right now, I'm opening up a limited number of intro calls for law firm owners who are ready to stop leaving money on the table. If that's you, head over to lawyermillionaire.com and book your call today before those spots are gone. Well, that's it for today, friend. And remember, if your law firm isn't building you wealth and freedom, what the hell are you doing? Can I get an amen? I'll see you next time.
Are you a law firm owner looking to build real wealth and break free from the daily grind? On the Lawyer Millionaire podcast, we share practical strategies to grow your practice, maximize profits, and create the financial freedom you deserve. Join host Darren Wurz as he interviews top experts and successful law firm leaders who share their secrets. Don't just practice law, build a legacy. Listen now to The Lawyer Millionaire wherever you get your podcast. The Lawyer Millionaire podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as legal, tax, or investment advice. Listeners should consult with a qualified professional before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Darren Wurz or Lawyer Millionaire Wealth Advisors.